And now to Colin Allred, proven to be a threat to Sessions and Republicans. Welcome back to the studio.
Always good to be with you.
Hi, Colin.
Pete Sessions is bringing a lot of big names. Speaker Paul Ryan, Rudy Giuliani. He's had an invitation out to President Trump and Vice President Pence. You have an endorsement from President Obama. Do you expect he will come to Texas to campaign for you, or anybody else for that matter, big name?
You know, I really don't know if he'll come.
Have you asked him?
We haven't asked, but I find it interesting that he's trying to pull in all these national folks and make this a national race. We have local issues that we should be talking about, and I think that people are concerned with things that are going on here that are different than anywhere else. And I'm not sure that having some national figure come in is actually going to address those things. And as somebody who grew up here, who's from here, whose family's been here for a long time, that's what I'm really focused on. And I'm really proud to have the support of the people that I grew up with, people that I grew up around.
A lot of the big news last week in Texas was about the state Senate seat outside San Antonio that flipped from a longtime Democratic seat over to the Republicans. What's the takeaway for Democratic candidates like you?
Well, I think you can't take anything for granted. I didn't follow that race extremely closely, but certainly it just means that we have to turn out the vote. We have to make sure that people are engaged. We have to make sure that we're not taking anything for granted, and we run this all the way through the wire. It's always the biggest challenge in Texas, to get more people out to vote, to get more people involved in our democracy. That's good for Democrats usually, but it's also good for our democracy, and it's something that I believe in deeply.
What was your reaction to that headline?
Which one is that?
About the state Senate seat down there in San Antonio.
Well, you know, I think that you shouldn't draw too many conclusions from it. I think that special elections are always kind of a toss-up. You never know what's going to happen with them. People are going to be very focused, and there's going to be a lot going on as we head into this election. And I don't think you can draw too many conclusions from that one.
Let me ask you about the ongoing New York Times poll in this race. The voters in your district, they like Beto. He's up even with Cruz, a little ahead. They don't like Donald Trump. They disapprove of him. But you're trailing, fairly badly to Pete Sessions. What's your takeaway from that?
Yeah, I'm really not going to play pundit. I think that they've said pretty clearly in their own description of that poll that it's got a lot of errors and it's got a lot of issues with it, and that they have got some sampling issues. But honestly, polls are not going to matter. In the end, the only thing that's going to matter is who comes out to vote on election day.
Yeah, I don't think it's an end result, but the people they've polled like Beto a lot more than they like you. Why?
I don't think that's the conclusion you can draw, and I haven't seen it, so I couldn't go too much into it, to be honest with you.
One thing I hear a lot about you, Colin, is people say they love your ideas, but they say you're short on specifics on how to accomplish things if you get elected in D.C. What do you tell those people?
Well, I'd love to go into specifics. If we could make this a 30-minute segment, let's talk about how we can fix our healthcare system, what we can do to invest in infrastructure, all the things that we need to get done here. That's just part of what we're having to do here, is to spend our time talking to people, letting them know what I stand for, how we can help this community. We do have a bunch of specific plans on my website, and if people come to our events, they certainly can get involved and know more about it. But there is real substance here. The issue we have is that I'm running against somebody who for too long has taken this district for granted, who doesn't come back here and talk to us, who I think the specifics we've seen from him are not our values, the votes that he's taken.
You said you won't be a party line Democrat. You said that a couple of times. On what issues specifically do you differ with the Democratic Party, or would you potentially ally with Republicans?
Well, what I'm going to do is, when an issue comes up, see if it's good for North Texas. That's going to be my calculus, not whether or not it's good for the Democratic Party. This is my home. I want what's best for us. My number one constituent will be my family and my mom. I want what's good for our community. And so there are issues, whether it's trade, where there's sometimes there have been some forces in our party that are not pro-trade. We've been big beneficiaries of trade here in this area, so I'm certainly going to be defending that. And there are others as well, but it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. And what I mean by that is that I'm going to be an independent voice. Pete Sessions has voted with Donald Trump 98% of the time. That's a lot, and I think that we can all understand that some of those votes were not in the interest of this community.
Sessions is running farther to the right. You're running closer to the middle. You talked about finding common ground with us on Facebook the other day and said the GOP wasn't the enemy. But Congressman Sessions pulls out a video from a campaign event earlier this year where you said that the election is far more than just being about Democrats and Republicans. According to the video, you said it's about common sense versus idiocy.
Well, I think that there are folks who, I'm not talking about party labels. What I'm saying is that there's something more fundamental at stake in this election than whether or not what party you support. I think what is at stake in this election is our fundamental values as Americans, which I think are at risk, whether that's a free press or an independent judiciary, or the idea that e pluribus unum, that out of many we are one, that we're in this together, and that we might have come here on different ships, but that we're in the same boat now and should be pulling in the same direction. I think there are forces going on right now that are trying to divide us, that are trying to pit us against each other, and I think we have to turn those back because that's not who we are.
This district is represented by one of the most powerful Republicans in the House with his role on rules. Why should they replace somebody who's built up all this seniority and all this power?
Well, what has he done with that power? For example, the Dallas Morning News reported that in July we lost 3,500 jobs, manufacturing jobs in Texas, because of these tariffs and these trade wars that Donald Trump is engaging in. What has our powerful member of Congress here done to stop that and to try and defend our jobs and our economy here?
What
Nothing.
would you be able to do as a rookie?
Well, we could work with folks to make sure we get something done. And I actually would say something and stand up and be actually a voice for North Texas instead of somebody who just would say, well, my party, the president who is a member of my party is doing this, and I don't care if it's not good for my community. That's not representation. That's not leadership. That's following.
End of the day, we're about 40 days or so away from the election. Turnout is going to be crucial, and Democrats have always had trouble getting that turnout to the polls on election day or in early voting. How do you overcome that in your district here, briefly in the final seconds?
Well, I truly believe that the most important thing in our democracy is a normal person talking to a normal person. At the doors, on the phone, at events, in your own home, in your conversations with friends, and we have hundreds and hundreds of folks who've gotten involved in this campaign who are helping us take our message person to person, neighbor to neighbor, Texan to Texan. That's how we're going to turn out a larger electorate, and one that I think is going to help us win this race and take our values to Washington.
Sounds good. Colin Allred, the Democratic candidate for Congress for District 32. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for the time.